two, three, four.
Hello and welcome to the NESN Soccer Podcast. I am Mark along with Marcus as we return to the studio once more. Marcus, how are you doing on this Friday afternoon?
I'm ready for the weekend.
Yeah, I think I am too. And an action-packed weekend that we have soccer-wise. We're going to kind of roll through 5 of the biggest matches of the weekend. But as we get to each match, we're going to sort of break off into little tangents as we examine things going on with certain clubs involved in the various matches. But I think the most obvious one that sticks out from this weekend, as we get to the other ones, is the Manchester Derby, which is Man United versus Manchester City. But it's really just the tip of the iceberg as far as intrigue going into the weekend with various clubs. But let's start there because it is Man United, Man City. They'll play on Sunday, November 11th at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. The game is at Manchester City. Man City, of course, is first in the Premier League, also first in their Champions League group, while Man United, I believe, is 7th in the Premier League and jumped up to 2nd in their Champions League group with a huge, surprising, shocking win at Juventus in the Champions League. But it's been a lot of turmoil in the season for Manchester United so far, centering around head coach So I think going into the game, that's kind of the big story. And we've been saying for a while now that this stretch club, and he did himself a big favor to give them that in the league, your biggest rival. Huge match, bigger for Man United than for Man City.
Yeah.
It's exciting to be at the top of their game. There's still joys.
Well, there's a lot of. We have this noted that Mourinho's seat is as hot as ever. A lot of the reaction to the Juventus win centered around it being maybe a turning point in Mourinho's season or tenure or whatever you want to call it, maybe a change in the narrative. I'm not ready to call it that. I think they just
Me neither.
they just won a game, and had they lost, I don't think the narrative would have really changed from what it's been. Mourinho under pressure. Had they lost at Juventus, which is there's no shame in that. But they came back and won, and yeah, I don't know how much that changes. I think some of the English media has a tendency to overstate certain results because that's just why they exist. But yeah, should be a good game.
I think, well, just so that we get all the listeners on the same page as us, after Man United came from behind to beat Juventus with 2 goals, I guess, in the final 5 minutes,
Yeah.
Mourinho was gesturing to the crowd, egging them on, had his hand to his ear as if he couldn't hear them anymore. I read a report that fans were attacking Mourinho personally, chanting taunts at him. Juve players took exception to Mourinho gesturing to the fans. And it's like, I'm sure there were fans saying things to Mourinho throughout the game. You're the manager of Manchester United. You go to an away stadium, they're all going to know everything about you. And regardless of what they say, and I'm sure it was the most despicable things that could be imaginable, you need to be above it and not react. And I think this is something that, I may just sound ridiculous here, but as the Manchester United manager, you need to be above it. And maybe this is something that at a different club, and at maybe even most clubs, it's almost even encouraged. You make a name for yourself as a coach. But if you're the Man United manager, you don't need to do this sort of thing. Any reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, I disagree with what you're saying and your fundamental premise. They were Mourinho was, little backstory. Mourinho won a treble with Inter Milan in 2010, 8 years later, Juventus still hates him. That was when Juventus were on their knees after their relegation. They had come back up, but Juventus wasn't the old lady as it now is once again. Yeah. So they were saying terrible things about Mourinho and his family and his wife and his daughter. And, they came back and won, and he was goading the crowd.
Yeah.
I love that kind of stuff. And, I don't think being Manchester United's manager, you have to be, you have to conduct yourself in a certain way where, it might not be outside of your personality or character.
Right.
Mourinho, what he did, that was classic Mourinho, typical Mourinho. He's like a WWE heel or villain, and he played his role very well. I thought it was great.
Okay, and from Manchester City perspective, the head-to-head matchups between Man United and Man City, I was kind of looking at the last 5 or 6 years. They've been the same as ever, very close, typically not more than 1 goal of separation, and no one team sort of taking more than the other. But Man City has finished higher than Man United in the Premier League standings every year since 2012-2013, which is when Man United last won the league. So Man City, I don't want to say they've overtaken, at least quality on the field recently, I'm saying past 3 years maybe, Man City has been clearly better each year. And
yeah,
just as
Man City's overtaken Man United. There's no arguing that.
Right.
That's a fact.
So for Man City, what exactly does this game mean? Because I feel like the fight to maybe be more popular than Man United is just, it's basically impossible. But are they proving anything, or is this just as close to another match on the schedule as facing Man United could ever be?
Wait, what's your question?
I'm saying for Manchester City, is this
have any extra significance?
Just this particular match, like as far as,
I mean, it does, because they are, it's a derby. It's their
right.
city rivals. Man City's won 3 Premier League titles since Man United last won one.
Right.
Man City goes farther than the Champions League. Man City has a better academy. They have a bigger budget. That's just the new reality. But, Pep Guardiola knows how important this game is to the Man City fans in terms of intra-city bragging rights. And, yeah, I mean, these games are always important. They're always big and combustible. And, Mourinho versus Guardiola is always a subplot in these matchups. But, yeah, I guess it's, for Man City, even if they lose, they'll still be at or near the top of the Premier League standings. And I don't see any kind of result that could blow this Man City team off course.
Yeah.
Man United certainly has a lot more riding on it, just because of how their season and really recent few seasons have been going. They want to be seen as on Man City's heels. I don't think anybody will argue with a straight face that Man United is, a better team than Man City. But, yeah, they want to be seen to be as close as possible. Even if they're 7th in the Premier League standings, beating Man City will give them confidence, self-belief.
Right. Well, as it stands right now, Man United they're tied for 6th as I look at it here, but they're only 9 points back. So a win brings them to 6 points back. But if they let it slip away and they do lose, then Manchester City starts to create that separation, and the top of the group starts to create the separation from sort of the pretenders in the league. And you do sort of tend to see that right before the January transfer window. You kind of get to see who's really starting to separate themselves. So I guess over the next few weeks, with the exception of an international break, we'll start to see who's going to be competing, I guess, for Champions League spots. And Man United, I think, is still hopeful for that. But let's not get too hung up on Man United and Manchester City, because there's action all over the world, Marcus. Let's go to Germany.
Okay.
Bayern Munich will travel to Borussia Dortmund on Saturday, November 10th. That is tomorrow, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. You will be able to watch the game in the United States on Fox.
Big Fox?
I spoke too soon. I believe it's on Fox Sports 1.
Okay.
Possibly even Fox Sports 2. But Dortmund and Bayern are 1 and 2 in the Bundesliga. Bayern is actually tied for second. But Dortmund is kind of, if you remember way back when in ancient times, before last season, Dortmund was sort of this, I want to say popular pick, maybe sexy pick with, at least in the United States, with Pulisic being on the team and getting a lot of playing time, that they were going to have a big season and challenge Bayern Munich, and they were also going to do well in Champions League. None of that happened for them. This year, though, they're kind of fulfilling those expectations. They've gotten off to a great start in Bundesliga. They're in first, and they're doing well in Champions League. But Bayern, they're saying they got off to a slow start is kind of crazy, because I think they've only lost 2 matches and won everything else.
Oh, wow.
But I guess that's considered a slow start. Maybe they have 1 draw. But
Bayern's got 2 losses, 2 draws, 6
Okay.
wins.
So that's still very good. Obviously, that's the kind of pace you need to keep up with if you're going to be knocking off Bayern Munich. But what are the chances that Dortmund can finally knock off Bayern, who have been as dominant in domestically as maybe only Juventus has been more dominant in Europe? Is this match in and of itself where we're going to find out if Dortmund's going to knock off Bayern?
Dortmund, I'm just looking at it here, haven't beaten Bayern Munich in, November 2016, almost 2 years to the day.
Wow.
Was their last Bundesliga win over Bayern.
Yeah.
They beat them in the semifinals of the German Cup in April 2017. The rest of the time, it's just been loss. Dortmund, I think, right now, they have as good a chance as any to beat Bayern. 2 wins since 2015, since the German Super Cup in 2015. Last Bundesliga win was April of 2014. So yeah, I mean, we're going on 4 years since the last time Dortmund won. November 2016. 2 years since they won Der Klassiker against Bayern. Dortmund's flying right now, and this is probably their, if there's ever a time to beat Bayern, it's now. Bayern have not really impressed anybody, most notably themselves this season, and Dortmund, they're flying high right now. They've got, great wingers like Pulisic and Jadon Sancho, and Marco Reus is playing well. He's healthy and in the midfield. They're getting goals. I'm not sure who's scoring their goals. Paco Alcacer, who is, I believe, on loan from Barcelona, is doing well for them. Dortmund's put together a good team, and they're having a good season. They always let me down whenever you get high on Dortmund and think now is the time that they're really gonna challenge Bayern. Bayern they always have their number. Maybe it's a matchup thing where when certain players step on the field and they see who's on the other side, they just wilt a little. So no, I am not expecting Dortmund to win. And if they did, they would go 7 points clear of Bayern, and then you could really start thinking and talking about a possible title. But yeah, I'm not expecting it. They come into the game 4 points clear. I would say they will be 1 or 4 points ahead by Saturday afternoon.
I wish I didn't agree with you, Marcus, but I was kind of looking at Dortmund's matchup with Atletico Madrid in Champions League in the middle of the week as sort of a measuring stick, because that would be pretty much the best competition they've faced so far.
And how did they do?
They lost 2-0. And I was sort of taking a bit of a deeper look into it, and they played Christian Pulisic and Jadon Sancho on either wing for the first time all season. And I guess what has been going on is Pulisic and Sancho have been subbing in for each other pretty consistently. Whether or not the other one starts has kind of been varying. So it seems like they sort of tried something new, and it didn't work out. So maybe they kind of go back to what was working before against Bayern Munich. But it was just kind of like it is something a little is just disappointing about it that they kind of played their two premier young players, young attacking players, together for the first time, and it didn't look like it really was working.
Against Atletico Madrid.
Against Atletico Madrid, and maybe it was something they were hoping they could, unleash going forward in the season, and maybe they'll continue to do so. But ahead of the game with Bayern, it's kind of just kind of takes all the air out of the balloon before that's going to happen. And I got to be honest, I was part of maybe the Dortmund fan club the past 2 years, hoping that they would knock off Bayern Munich. I think so. I mean, I haven't made it so known here.
What?
Well, because I knew that you're just going to criticize me. in my silent corners,
We've been doing this for 2 years. This is the first time you ever mentioned that.
Well,
all right.
Basically,
Mark's a Dortmund fan. Who knew?
Well, no, I don't want to say that. I'm just sort of quietly, glancing over my shoulder at the Bundesliga, hoping Dortmund's going to knock off Bayern and win the league. But I think Bayern kind of rights the ship once again here and uses this game as maybe like a bit of a statement to win at Dortmund.
The I ain't dead yet MFers statement.
Sort of, something like that. And maybe even be a little convincing, like a 2-0 victory, something like that.
Yeah, I could see that.
But
yeah, first of all, I have a lot of respect for Dortmund. Whenever I meet a Dortmund fan, I always tell them how much I respect their yellow wall.
It's fantastic.
But the team is, it's always rickety. It's always being raided by bigger clubs. They're always reinventing themselves. The one thing that jumps out at me in this game is Jadon Sancho, who's making headlines galore in England for his play in Germany. I think we're going to find out a lot of what he's made of. I remember a couple of years ago when Pulisic was just breaking onto the scene, and then he played against Dortmund. This might have been played against Bayern, and this might have been last year, where Bayern won. I don't know, heavily, but Pulisic was the only. He was the brightest spot in that. So that was kind of a time where you could say, okay, we know this kid is for real, because even though it wasn't the 6-0 win last year, I think it was Bayern's 3-1 win about a year ago, where Pulisic was playing really well, and he emerged with a lot of credit. So you kind of learn about different players in games like these. So I'll be interested to see what Jadon Sancho does against the cream of the Bundesliga crop, regardless of what the standings say.
It's worth noting, like I said, even if Sancho's not in the starting lineup and it's Pulisic instead, don't let that deter you, because chances are he's going to come on for Pulisic probably in like the 60-something minute and just be like a powerhouse the final third of the game. Okay, Marcus, on to our third country, third match.
That presupposes that people are tuning in to watch Pulisic.
Well, yeah, I guess so. Espanyol at Sevilla. Now, you might be asking, why are we talking about Espanyol at Sevilla? Well, it sort of ties in with Real Madrid, but as it stands right now, Espanyol is second in La Liga, Sevilla is third, with Barcelona in first, Atletico Madrid in fourth. Well, Atletico Madrid is actually tied for third And Real Madrid all the way tied for 6th with 17 points on the year. So I guess the real question that I wanted to ask with this match is, now we've got two teams that are currently in the Champions League top 4. Will they be able to maintain their pace along with, say, Atletico Madrid and Barcelona to somehow keep Real Madrid out of Champions League contention in this season? Because Real Madrid is kind of, I mean, they fired their coach and up in arms, and they've been on fire since the firing of the coach. But still a lot of questions to be answered there. So any thoughts on that? No?
They won't. No.
I don't think so either.
We're a month and a half, 2 months into the season.
Yeah.
Real Madrid has been fairly, relative to their expectations, they've been terrible this season. They took drastic measures a couple weeks ago and fired Julen Lopetegui. No, they're not. Real Madrid is not going to miss out on the Champions League after winning it 3 straight years. Period.
So since firing Lopetegui, Real Madrid has had 3 matches. They've won all 3 with a combined score of 11-0. Now, all 3 of those matches have been against not very good competition, and it's kind of a total score that you would probably expect. Their next big test, or if you even want to, is their toughest match, I'd say, in like the next month, is November 27th at AS Roma in Champions League. Roma has been performing well in Champions League despite not so well in Serie A, and have been kind of a troublemaker for some big name clubs around Europe in this competition. So I would say going to Roma on that day will be our biggest indication of where Real Madrid stands, considering the last biggest match we saw them play was the El Clasico disaster that saw them fire their coach.
All right.
But, Marcus, I wanted to ask you this question because it sort of dawned on me. Florentino Perez is the president of Real Madrid, makes all the coaching decisions, I guess. And then did he make all the player decisions?
He makes the
decisions.
He is very influential in the technical department.
Right. So he stole Lopetegui from the Spanish national team right before the World Cup started. That didn't work out well for Spain, who ended up not like losing in the round of 16, but also never looking really strong in any match throughout the tournament.
Right.
And then Lopetegui's out after 14 matches at Real Madrid.
Which is one of the, I know we touched on it in our last podcast, one of the bigger human dramatic catastrophes we've seen in soccer in the last, in recent years.
Yeah.
Here's a guy who had spent, years working his way up the Spanish coaching system.
Right.
Gets the national team job, takes him to the World Cup, in flying colors, and then goes behind Spain's back and negotiates with Real Madrid. Spain fires him. And then after, 100-something days, he's out at Real Madrid. It's like 2 dream jobs just go up in smoke within 5 months. Incredible.
It's like he sort of sold his soul, and this is the price you pay when you think you get everything you want.
Yeah.
And,
Be careful what you wish for.
Right. But Florentino Perez is very responsible for all of this happening.
Yes.
And to kind of add on to it, Cristiano Ronaldo and Zinedine Zidane both leave in the same week, off-season, whatever. So how popular is Florentino Perez as the man in charge of Real Madrid? Is there anything along the lines of he's making the wrong decisions for the club, and this could end up leading to him, if bad decisions continue to come, he's out at Real Madrid, or is anybody even able to really do that to him?
The answer to your last question is no.
Yeah.
We won't really see what the effects of his decision making in the post-Zidane era ultimately prove to be for another 18 to 24 months. One thing I do know is that when Perez returned as Real Madrid president around 2000, I don't know, 10, 11, 12, thereabouts, he has since rewritten or pushed through changes to the club rules, which make it so basically only he can be president. You have to put up a certain amount of your own personal capital to, if you want to be Real Madrid's president, you have to be able to, personally front a certain percentage of the club's revenue. Perez, being one of the richest men in Spain, is,
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So that was done. So no, he's not going to be voted out because the rules have been changed so that he's, he might be president for life.
Right.
In terms of his popularity, I mean, that all
really
depends on how the team performs.
Right.
And it would take some sort of disaster like Real Madrid failing to reach the Champions League knockout stages or failing to qualify for the Champions League for the well-mannered mob at the Bernabeu to, storm the gates and demand his resignation or downfall. But no, I don't, how popular is he? I don't know. One thing I am seeing, though, breaking news, Santiago Solari, Real Madrid's interim coach, he won 3 games, 11 goals, none conceded. Real Madrid wants him to continue.
Oh, wow.
Through the end of the season. After just 2 weeks, they decide he's the guy to go through. There was talk about them going after Mauricio Pochettino from Tottenham, denied. Not the talks, but any approach was rejected. They wanted Antonio Conte, former Chelsea coach. That was rejected from possibly within the dressing room. Sergio Ramos came out and made statements that were clearly directed toward Conte and his management style. So yeah, it looks like Solari will be in at Real Madrid through the end of the season, and yeah, come hell or high water. One thing I've learned in recent weeks about Real Madrid, in the last 50 years, only one coach has lasted longer than 3 years at that club.
Are you kidding me?
Maybe it's the last 48 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Real Madrid eats managers.
Who was the one that was there for longer than 3 years?
I forget his name. He was in the
Not
70s.
Wow. Just so that even that.
Yeah, give me a second. I can bring it up.
Well, Santiago Solari, for those who don't know, played 5 years at Real Madrid.
Also played the United States briefly at a small Division III school.
Right. Yeah, I saw that.
Did I scoop you on that, or were you about to say that?
No.
Miguel Munoz, from 1960 to 1974, was Real Madrid's coach. I think he won 9 league titles, 2 Copa del Reys, 2 European Cups. But yeah, Real Madrid, as an institution, eats managers.
Yeah.
And when you go there, you go there knowing that you're not going to last long. There was also talk about Jose Mourinho being a target, but him at Manchester United. Yeah, there's a lot of rumors going around, but it looks like Santiago Solari is the guy.
All right.
For the season.
Let's, if we can, somehow move beyond Real Madrid. We could just do an episode on Real Madrid every week if we wanted.
Well, we did last time.
Yeah. Our final European match to watch this weekend is Juventus at AC Milan. That's also on Sunday, November 11th. That one's at 2:30 p.m. Eastern to sort of cap off your soccer weekend. Juventus is first in Serie A, firing on all cylinders. AC Milan is fourth, sort of on their way to returning to their former status as a real threat and power in Serie A. But my main question here is,
Are they?
well, I mean, they're in fourth, so.
Yeah, after 11 games.
But I don't remember the last time they were in fourth after 11 games since I've been following Serie A, which is about 7 years now. So
yeah, it's been a tough 7 years for AC Milan.
It has been.
Yeah.
I have this question in there. Can anyone slow down Juventus? I think the answer is no in Serie A.
Not in Italy.
I guess my bigger question is, and Man United came back against them at Juventus. They scored on 2 set pieces. One was an own goal. It was very fluky, very weird.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like Juventus wasn't in control of the game or anything like that.
Everything looked good right up until it didn't.
Yeah. But is there anything about Juventus's loss to Man United? Because I think we've both been saying, or at least I know I've been saying, that I like them to win the Champions League this year.
Mm-hmm.
I like them better than pretty much any other club. But is there anything about the loss to Man United that makes you second guess that at this point?
Yes. I think they're too weak at goalkeeper. Wojciech Szczesny is currently their number 1. And he just had this look on his face that, with which I am familiar as an Arsenal fan. Arsenal sold him to Juventus. And it was a familiar look of bafflement where he's like, how did this happen? And, it was whatever the opposite of inspiring is, that look. It was like, I was like, wow, Szczesny's there at number 1 and they concede 2 goals. Now, I'm not bashing him. I always thought he was a good goalkeeper, but good enough to win the biggest prizes? No. He didn't show that at Arsenal. Hasn't shown it at Juventus in the, 2 months he's been the undisputed number 1. And certainly for Poland, he has not done that. So, I think if and when Juventus fail to win the Champions League, a lot of the fingers of blame will be pointed at their not so young anymore Polish goalkeeper, Wojciech Szczesny.
What do you think they should have made a bigger effort to keep Gianluigi Buffon?
Yeah, I forget the circumstances.
Well, didn't he retire?
No, he's at PSG.
Right, but he retired and then signed with PSG, even though it came out technically.
He announced that he was going to leave. Juventus has done this before with legendary players. I have a feeling it was kind of a business decision where maybe his performance level had dropped. And you remember at this time last year, Italy failed to reach the World Cup. Maybe his level just dipped to the point where him being, the highest paid or one of the highest paid players at the club no longer made sense. I remember when Alessandro Del Piero left Juventus, he didn't retire there. They kind of, pushed him out, or he left at the exact same moment they had decided to push him out. So, Juventus does this from time to time with legendary players. They, when they decide it's time for you to go, it's time for you to go. And depending on who you are, they'll negotiate with you how you make that exit, how you publicize it, how you deal with the media. But I'm not entirely sure Buffon went out on his own terms. But yes, should they have tried to upgrade? Yes, they should have. They did sign a goalkeeper whose name is so unfamiliar to me, it doesn't come off the top of my head, but Szczesny was there playing. He's the number 1 in the biggest game against Man United, and he just didn't get the job done. Mattia Perin, who they got from Genoa. I don't really think he's been playing too much. He's only played 1 game this season in Serie A. So Szczesny's the number 1. I would have thought Juventus could have gotten somebody a little better.
Well, there's always the January transfer window.
There is, but they won't get that goalkeeper. The only one I can think of is maybe Donnarumma from Milan. Would they, they wouldn't be able to get him easily. They're stuck with who they have. So good luck to them.
Right. Well, our final match number 5, is Boca Juniors versus River Plate.
This is the biggest one of the weekend. Everything has been leading up to this.
The Copa Libertadores final. Leg 1.
Yep. Leg 2 is on November 24th.
Okay.
2 Saturdays from now.
So first leg
or
is
2 Saturdays from tomorrow.
Right. Is this Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern.
You can watch on Fox Deportes and stream on Fox Soccer Match Pass, I believe.
I'll let you take it, Marcus, because you're going to know a hell of a lot more about this than I would.
And also will be streaming on Fanatiz, which I just discovered recently has a lot of good streaming rights for Latin American games. The Libertadores final. Libertadores being South America's equivalent of the Champions League. What you have are these two rivals, Boca Juniors and River Plate, who have been battling it out for, 115 years for local bragging rights. They are arguably the two biggest, or two of the biggest clubs in South America. They are the two biggest in Argentina by some distance. And they're, they play in the same city, Buenos Aires. They've met hundreds of times through the years. This is the first time they're meeting in the final of the Libertadores. So, yeah, as you can tell, all of much of Latin America and, I would dare I say the Spanish-speaking world is on a knife edge, and I think a lot of soccer fans from everywhere else are tuning in and turning their attention to what is going to be just, I'm seeing it described as one of the most significant continental finals of all time. And yeah, I personally am stoked for this game. The last time they played in this competition was 2015. In the quarterfinals, the game was abandoned at halftime because with Boca losing, some of their fans cut a hole in a fence and then went into the, reached into the bubble that the teams walked down into the tunnel and sprayed River Plate players with tear gas.
Oh my God.
Or was it tear gas or pepper spray? It was one of them.
Right.
It was just one of the most shocking scenes. I'll never forget it. I was watching live, and CONMEBOL threw Boca out of the competition, and this is the first time they're meeting in this competition since then. This time around, both clubs have decided that away fans will not be allowed. So when they play at La Bombonera, Boca Stadium, will be all Boca fans. Mm-hmm. When it's at El Monumental, River Stadium, it'll be all River fans. And yeah, it's the brawl for it all. Next year, the Libertadores is going to a single leg final at a neutral venue, I believe.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, this is going to end the Copa Libertadores as we currently know it. And I couldn't think of a better way to end it than this.
Well, you said it all, Marcus.
Yeah.
I don't need to say anything else about that.
Yeah.
I will certainly be looking forward to that one.
And I'm having a party for both games.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't get my invite.
I didn't send it to you.
Well, joke's on you, because I am unable to attend.
Okay. I just hit send on the invite, too.
Okay.
Guess I'll unsend it. Yeah, no, it's big. I've invited a few people who I know are close watchers of the South American game, which is why you didn't get your invite.
Yeah, no, I don't know much about South American soccer.
Yeah,
that's for
sure. It's a very curated guest list. Yeah, no, it's going to be great and tough to see on TV. You have to Find
really
Fox
find it.
Deportes.
Yeah, where is it? So Fox Deportes or
I
it
think
wouldn't
they're
be
the
on
only
like
ones.
Telemundo or anything like that?
No, they're the only ones that are broadcasting the game, and you can stream it on Fox Soccer Match Pass.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Fox Sports Go will have it. They probably won't. And also Fanatiz, Fanatiz.
Well,
I don't know too much about them, but they have streaming rights.
if you can, I would definitely suggest tuning into that.
Yeah.
It's going to be electric, I guess would be the word I would use. But don't miss any of these matches. You can kind of take in every single one. And, you know, it's cold, it's wintry. You don't need to really worry about American football. Just watch some soccer this weekend. It'll be well worth your while.
Yeah. Rarely am I as excited about a slate of games as I am about this one. So it might not sound like it, but I am.
All right. Well, Marcus, thank you for joining me on this Friday afternoon, getting this podcast in. For listeners, if you're listening on YouTube, perhaps, stop doing that. Go to iTunes and search NESN, that's NESN, to follow the NESN Podcast Network, where you can get all of our podcasts, including every NESN Soccer podcast. And subscribe, like, rate, do all that good stuff. Review, tweet at us, at MKOmard, at Mark D. Benz, at NESN Soccer. And thanks for tuning in.
Boy, I tell you so.